Krista Redpath Media presents Montana Made, a featured series of the Krista Redpath podcast. I'm your host, Krista, veteran broadcaster and proud Montanan. Each episode, we'll sit down with athletes, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and hometown heroes for conversations about resilience and the moments that define us, all rooted in the people and experiences that make this state unlike anywhere else. So settle in as we celebrate remarkable journeys and discover what it truly means to be Montana Made. Montana Made is proudly presented by Clearwater Credit Union. One of the reasons Clearwater Credit Union is such a great fit for Montana Made is because they believe strong communities are built by investing in people. Whether it's supporting local nonprofits, providing financial education, helping small businesses grow, or creating opportunities for families across Montana, Clearwater believes banking can make a real difference. That's a mission I'm proud to share. To learn more about Clearwater Credit Union services and community impact, visit clearwatercreditunion.org. Another special thank you to our supporting sponsor, Vertical Raise, your premier online fundraising platform. Welcome to another episode of Montana Made, a special summer series on the Krista Redpath podcast, where we celebrate the remarkable people whose stories begin right here in Big Sky Country. I'm your host, Krista, and today I'm honored to welcome in Brock Osweiler. Brock's journey has taken him from growing up in Kalispell and starring at Flathead High School to Arizona State, the NFL, a Super Bowl championship, and today, one of ESPN's respected college football analysts. So, Brock, it is great to have you. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'd love to begin where every Montana story begins, with home.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Great Falls while you grew up in Kalispell, vastly different across the state. I had the wide open skies, the Missouri River.
Yeah.
You had Glacier National Park, mountains, lakes. What are some of your earliest memories of growing up in Kalispell?
Yeah, well, first off, Krista, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be a part of this podcast series. It's funny. My both my parents born and raised in Great Falls, so I feel like I have a little bit of Great Falls in me as well. We spent a lot of time over there, obviously visiting family. But yes, you're right. I grew up in Kalispell. I grew up in the beautiful Flathead Valley, and when I think back to my childhood, I think the first thought is you think about the great outdoors and you think about the summertime. So it's very fitting that we're doing this podcast in the middle of July because I just remember playing and I remember just enjoying what we had around us. We kind of grew up a little bit outside of town and we were surrounded by a bunch of little ponds and lakes. And so my brother and I and all of our neighborhood friends, we spent our days fishing and swimming and, building, army forts, if you will, and just, truly kind of living that quintessential, beautiful childhood life in the mountains of Montana. Just playing and having fun and riding bikes and, sleeping on the trampoline under the stars at night. And, it's funny when I look back, I almost took it for granted because you just kind of
Yeah.
assume that every kid grows up that way.
Yeah.
And now that I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, with my wife and two daughters, and you realize that's not how summer is for everybody. And so I look back on it with very fond memories. We used to go to the water slide park. We'd always have a season pass. My parents always made sure that we got out there a bunch, and whitewater rafting in Glacier Park and camping on Flathead Lake with friends. And it really was just kind of like a storybook childhood if you think about it. You're playing outside. It's beautiful. You're in Montana. You're in a safe place. And so now that's something that I'm trying to give back to my kids. We're super fortunate. We're able to leave Arizona for a couple months, during the hot summer, and we
Yeah,
go up
get
to,
out of the heat.
that's exactly right. And we go up to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and my girls do the same stuff. They go fishing and tubing and wake surfing, and they try to catch little frogs at night, and they create ladybug habitats. And the point is they're outside, they're playing, they're
Right.
enjoying the beauty, they swim every day. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to grow up doing that, I mean, it's a magical summer.
Brock, was sports always a part of your upbringing? I know that you basketball, football, but did you play in youth sports? And was that something you and your brother had a few friendly games in the driveway, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, you could call them friendly if you want to. We got after each other pretty good. We both love to compete. No, sports have been with me since day one. I mean,
Mhm.
from my earliest memories, sports have always been a part of my life. I attribute that to both my parents. My mom really liked playing basketball and kind of watching other sports, and then my dad loved football, and he'd play in summer softball leagues and things like that. So we were always surrounded by it. The TV was always on, sports were on, and it's something that at a very early age I gravitated to. We talk about earliest memories of Montana summer and doing all those things. Well, right there with those earliest memories are sports. And I remember being in kindergarten. I remember being in first grade, and I remember crying to my parents because I wasn't old enough to play organized football yet, but my brother was,
Oh,
and I just wanted to be on his team, and I couldn't, and I didn't understand why I wasn't allowed to be. So I think that's a short way of saying, from my earliest memories, I wanted to play anything and everything: football, basketball, baseball. I even remember the very first kind of organized sport thing I did was gymnastics, of all things. And it was because it was the only thing I was allowed to do at that age. And so my parents signed me up for it. I don't really remember if I enjoyed it or not, but I was there. And then that led to soccer. That was the next thing. And then I was finally old enough to play football, basketball, and baseball, and just dove right into those three sports.
so if your daughters ask, like, Dad, what was it like growing up in Montana? Like, what story would you tell them first?
Oh, goodness. It's a great question. There's so many great memories, just thinking about kind of growing up there and what it was like. I think the thing that really kind of helped make me who I am today is the small town community, if you will.
Mhm.
My parents, they had a great group of friends. I'd say there's probably five, six, seven families that consistently got together on the weekends, and all of us kind of kids grew up together, and that led to camping trips, that led to tubing behind boats in the summer, ski weekends up on Big Mountain. I still call it Big Mountain.
It's always going to be Big Mountain.
Yes, it
I will always
will.
refer to it that way too.
I remember NFL playoffs coming around and getting together on the weekends and watching the games. And then,
Yeah.
the kids would go out in the yard, and whether there was snow on the ground or not, we're out there playing football, and the Super Bowl parties and the Grizz playoff parties. And so, just kind of that community that we had. And nobody had a lot per se as far as possessions and things like that, but when you bring that community together, these weekends found a way to be special. This person had the boat, this person had the house, this person brought that, and it was just kind of a
Right.
beautiful thing coming together. And it was a great lesson to see and learn and live, and now that's kind of something that we're able to share with our girls.
So, Brock, as you moved into high school, your opportunities, they started to grow pretty quickly. What began as a kid that loves sports was becoming one of the country's top athletes. Like, when you look back at your time, like at Flathead High School, like what stands
Yeah.
out first?
Yeah, I was so kind of I had a one-track mind. I wanted to play college sports and hopefully professional sports in the worst way. And that vision, that mindset, that focus probably began looking back in like fifth, sixth grade. And so, when I got to high school, it was all about just trying to maximize opportunities. It was trying to, learn from the older players, the players that were on varsity, the
Mhm.
coaches, the strength coach, and just try to make myself the best athlete I could be. I even remember as early as seventh grade, I got invited to go throw with the quarterbacks in the off season. And then I got invited to go to the weight room a couple times and be in there with the varsity team and the strength staff. And I remember, that was a big time eye-opening experience, a little intimidating, obviously being in seventh grade.
Hmm.
But the reason why I tell you that is I wanted that. I wanted
Right.
that challenge. I wanted to be pushed. I wanted it all. And I was going to give everything I had to try to get to that next level and try to accomplish that goal. So when I got to high school, it was like it's go time.
Yes.
There's no time to waste. I'm going to work harder on the basketball court. I was still pretty raw when it came to football. I was still learning the quarterback position. When I was a freshman in high school, Grady Bennett was still the varsity coach at Flathead. Obviously, a great coach when it comes to quarterbacks. And
Yes.
so that helped me out tremendously. And so I was just trying to be a sponge, work my tail off, and try to go win some games and make a varsity team.
I feel like for basketball, there's more opportunities with travel ball
Yeah,
early. And so you have more of, I want to say your game's elevated. You just have more opportunity to play more basketball than you do football.
you're
Did that
spot on.
contribute to you going the route of committing to Gonzaga and then eventually decommitting and going the football route? But take us through that.
Yeah, you nailed it. And that's exactly it. I always loved football a little bit more than basketball, but to your point, there was more opportunities to play basketball. Shoot, even if you're at your house and you want to play football, if there's no one around, you can't play football. But if you have a hoop and a ball, you can always play basketball. You can go work on drills, you can shoot, you can do whatever you want. So you combine that with, to your point, the traveling ball, the AAU circuit. Um, Really fortunate. Two very supportive parents that I think saw this potential in me. There was another group of kids I was growing up with. They really wanted it. So yeah, thinking back, it was probably fifth grade-ish, maybe somewhere in there, sixth grade. We started kind of traveling around the state of Montana, whether it was 3-on-3 tournaments, 5-on-5 tournaments, parents driving us around the state, having fun on the weekend, and we were starting to have some success. And so the next step was, hey, well, let's go hop into Hoop Fest over in Spokane, Washington, and do this. You hear about the world's largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Let's go see what it's
Right.
about. So we grabbed a team, we hopped over there, and I guess we got lucky and we ended up winning the tournament. And so I remember there
Yeah.
was a team in Spokane, and their coach was coaching the team that we ended up beating in the championship. And he asked my parents if I had any interest in joining their AAU travel team that was out of Spokane, Washington. And so we jumped on that opportunity, and then that started leading to, okay, we're going to travel kind of the Western United States with these tournaments, more in the Northwest, Seattle, Portland, but then we'd hop down to Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, and things like that. And that led to more success. And then I was really fortunate to get seen by a team out of Seattle and then another team out of Portland that a lot of NBA players went through. And I was lucky, and so then it kind of grew to the point where we went from just doing AAU in Montana, then kind of the Northwest, then the Western
Hmm.
United States, and then when I hopped on Seattle Rotary and then the Portland Legends, I mean, we were nationwide, and it was every single weekend. We could be anywhere and everywhere. I played with a couple guys. If you go through our starting five, I think three of the five ended up in the NBA. I ended up in the NFL, and I'm drawing a blank on the fifth. But we had a good team, and it was a wild experience. And so, to your original question, yes, I was getting an insane amount of reps at basketball. I was getting exposed at basketball, to college coaches and staffs and recruiting. And so that kind of just, it was an expedited process. It got in front of football, where football was more delayed. Football was simply just football season in Montana, and that was it. And so I think my skill set improved quicker in basketball, but there was always this massive love for football, and it was just something that I couldn't put to the side. So like you said, yeah, I decommitted from Gonzaga, and my love for football was really the biggest reason why, and chose to go to Arizona State and throw the pigskin.
So take us through that recruiting process. Arizona State, how did that come about? Obviously, Dennis Erickson has Montana roots, very successful career down at Montana State. That's all going to come full circle when we talk about you calling the national championship for Montana State.
Yeah,
But talk about how that came about. And did Coach Erickson reach out to you, reach out to your high school coach?
yeah. It was I'll never forget it. Every and as you know, when you receive a scholarship offer from a coach, sometimes it's face to face,
Hmm.
sometimes it's over the phone. That's how most of the other ones came. My offer to go to Arizona State from Dennis Erickson was much different. I'll never forget it. It was spring of my sophomore year, and I was sitting in a science class, and I got a letter delivered to the class, and this kind of was happening more and more as I got in high school, whether it was basketball or football. Schools would send letters to the school, and then they would kind of get delivered to me throughout the day. And sitting in this science class, and a knock on the door happens. A student kind of helper from the office pops in. Yep, teacher lets him in. I get the letter. It says Arizona State. I open it up, and it was a scholarship offer. It was a full ride
Oh
scholarship
my.
offer in the letter. I had never talked to Dennis Erickson. I had never met anybody from the staff. It was just completely out of the blue. And when I talked to Dennis, obviously after, and just where did this all come about? And you said it, Dennis Erickson, big time Northwest roots, Montana roots, grew up in
Mhm.
Washington, played college football at Montana State, coached at Montana State, coached high school football in the state, married a girl from the state, his best friend's from Great Falls. And
Yes.
so that's where it came from. His best friend was at a football game my sophomore year, saw me play live, called Dennis and said, "Hey, I think you found your next kid out of Montana." Obviously, Dennis watched the tape, and the rest is history. So, but that was just kind of a start. That offer came in. I was considering going to Stanford to play football, Florida State
Mhm.
to play football, and basketball was still prevailing. That's really what I thought I was going to do. If you think back to the time that I was in high school, oh 06, oh 07, oh 08, that Gonzaga basketball program, they were really on the rise. And
They were.
Adam Morrison was in the player of the year, with JJ Redick at Duke. They were kind of going back and forth, and that was right in the heat of my recruiting process. And so Gonzaga was a big deal. I loved everything about the program. Mark Few, Leon Rice,
Mhm.
Tommy Lloyd, just great coaches, great players. It seemed like they had a really special culture. Short drive for mom and dad
Family.
and family bingo to come over from
Mhm.
Kalispell and watch the games. So there was a lot of reasons to go to Gonzaga. And then, as I wrapped up my junior year of football, I just kind of saw this potential, and I kind of felt like I knew who I was as a basketball player, but I felt
Mhm.
like there was a lot more in the tank to go find as a football player. And so I kind of wanted to roll the dice on that. Obviously, my love for the sport is probably what pushed it, but then I just felt like there was a chance for some big opportunity there if I could get the right coaching and just kind of bring everything together, and kind of hone my skill set and sharpen the tools a bit. And fortunately, it worked out.
Well, I had a chance to visit with Coach Freddie Feedback, good
Nice.
family friend, also your coach. And I asked him a question. I said, if you had to describe Brock in one word, what would it be? And he said, relentless. And he expanded on it by saying, like, relentless effort, relentless preparation, relentless attitude. And he kind of just took that theme and he said he always remained humble. Like, what goes through your mind when you hear a coach that gave you so much early describe you that way?
I mean, it's amazing. It really is. I mean, you probably saw the smile on my face. What an incredible word to be associated with. And I think back to my time with Coach Feedback, and sadly, the one of the first things that comes to my mind is regret, and regret that we never got him a state championship. we had super talented teams, and just for some reason we would stub our toe every year in the playoffs. But he was an incredible coach to play for. He taught me so much about hard work and discipline. I mean, he pushed us, and he pushed us hard. And thinking back on it, I don't know if I had the best attitude, about that in high school, but looking back, I'm so grateful he did push us that hard, because ultimately he helped, shape me and form me into the person that I am today, and into the pro athlete that I was, not too long ago. And so really special times with Coach Feedback and in high school basketball. But yeah, if you're going to be associated with a word, that's special, and I'm honored that he said that about me.
What other memory that he talked about is that at the home games at Flathead High, there was always usually like one or two rows of elementary kids that would just come before the game and wait for you and just want your attention. And that he always said that you stopped, gave them a high five, made sure you acknowledged all
Mhm.
these kids. And I mean, at the time, I don't know if you realized the impact you were having, but you had an entire, city that was behind you. And that's pretty special to have all these kids at the games.
Yeah, it really is. And, I wish I could tell you what caused the instinct in me to pay so much attention to those young
Mhm.
kids and other situations like that. I mean, I think you have to look at my mom and dad and how they raised me, and the upbringing that I had and the values that they instilled in me. I also think to moments like, and I'm sure there's a great chance that this had an influence on it. I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and I thought Grizz football players were like the coolest thing on the planet. And whether it was after a regular season game, back then you could go down on the field after the games. If it was after a spring game, I remember they did a spring game up in Kalispell one time. Point is, after these moments, I would go down on the field and get autographs. And I feel like so many people put other people first, and obviously that value has been instilled in me, and it means a lot to me. So that's pretty cool that he brought that up, because we had a special time together. I mean, we really did. He was a great coach who cared a ton about his players. He coached us with a ton of passion and ferocity, but he also had this like soft and gentle heart that you would see once in a while. He would do things like, every once in a while you would have to have the early practice during the season. There's only so much gym space. So you every couple of weeks you would have to do a week of 5 a.m. practices.
Those
And
are
I
brutal.
remember, yeah, they were, but he would, kind of, I think looking back on it, hey, and thanks for your guys' hard work getting here early. I'm going to take you guys to breakfast when practice is done before school starts. So just
Mm.
like, I just have super fond memories of playing for him. And like I said, my only regret is not getting him that state championship.
So leaving Montana meant stepping into a completely different world. Like Arizona State wasn't just another school. I mean, you're leaving states. You're taking off
Yeah.
and leaving Montana. Like, what was the biggest adjustment from Kalispell to Tempe?
The heat.
Yeah.
No. In all seriousness, I mean, yeah, obviously the desert's a lot hotter than Montana. You know, I adjusted fine. I guess I don't really have a big aha moment. Hey, this was a tough situation for me. Oh, I'm
Hmm.
homesick here.
Hmm.
No, I mean, I remember getting dropped off in my dorm the first night, and I graduated high school early, so I got to Tempe in January of
Hmm.
2009, so I could be there to compete in spring ball that spring. And I remember getting to the dorm night one, and I was just like, this is where I've always wanted to be. This is what I had been working for years, and I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna work my tail off, and I can't wait to get to work. Like if I remember right, I got dropped off on like a Friday or Saturday, and our first workout wasn't until Monday, and it was like I couldn't wait for Monday to get there. Like I wanted to start being a college football player right now, and so there really wasn't a big adjustment. I mean, Just like, there's all the things when you go from high school to college, just adjusting to the speed of the game and the weight room stuff and class load and, this, that, and the other. But it's where I wanted to be, and I enjoyed every second of it.
So, Brock, it's the camaraderie too. I know as a former athlete and playing for the Lady Grizz here at the University of Montana, I'm so close with my teammates still. I mean, we have
Yeah.
group texts. We're still keeping in touch. Can you talk about those relationships? Because those are formative years where you really meet people that you connect with that become lifelong friends.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with it. In fact, since we've been on this podcast, I've already received in these 34 minutes two text messages from former teammates at ASU. So, yes, to your point, you make lifelong bonds and relationships and friendships, and
Mhm.
it goes so far beyond the field. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. It's hard to be a Division I athlete and, handle the class load and the weight room and everything that goes with it. And then, you're also going out and you're having fun. And so you leave your family at home and you get to Tempe and you kind of create your college family, if you will. You eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. You go out together. You're in the weight room together. You're on the field together. You're in the meeting room. I mean, you are together 24/7, 365. And so you create these bonds and relationships. And it's so special. I have a great group of friends. In fact, some of them are coming up to Lake Coeur d'Alene this weekend. We see each other all the time in Scottsdale. Shoot, one of my college teammates and roommates, he's my dentist now. It's just
Yeah.
like they go nowhere. And it's just I'm so grateful that I got that experience. I met the people that I did, and you're right, it goes so far beyond the wins and losses. Because if you just looked at that, you'd be like, oh, hey, you had a terrible college experience. We didn't win a ton of games, but beyond that, everything was A plus, and so much has to do with the relationships and people that I met.
You talk about how the NFL was always a dream of yours, and that was something that you talked about back even as early
Yeah.
as like fifth grade. But take me back to Friday, April 27th, 2012. The Broncos call your name.
Oh.
What's the first thing you remember about that moment?
I remember I had this giant sense of relief. And the reason why is I didn't know if I was going to go in the first round or the sixth round. I had only started one season. I left for a number of reasons, but primarily because the entire coaching staff was fired. There was a completely new staff coming in for just my senior year. There was a lot of things associated with that. So at the time, I made what I thought was the best decision, and that was to enter into the draft. And, we had a decent amount of information. But as the draft got closer, like I said, we didn't know. There was teams talking about potentially taking me in the first round or as late as the fifth, sixth round. And, as someone who was coming off, a really good season, especially considering it was my first season ever being a starter in college football, it was like, shoot, should we have gone back? Should we have built upon it? There was probably going to be a chance to get into the Heisman race and this and
Mhm.
that and all the things. And so when I got the call, it wasn't the first round, but when I got the call in the second round, big time relief. And then once you got past that emotion, it's kind of like, wow, I'm on the phone with John Elway right now. I remember watching him play in those two Super Bowls in the late 90s.
Mhm.
Speaking of the Super Bowl parties in Montana with all the families and our friends. And I vividly remember those Super Bowls like it was yesterday. And now all of a sudden I'm on the phone with him and talking about being a Denver Bronco. And it's a feeling that I don't actually know if you can put into words because it's just probably outside of your kids being born or winning a Super Bowl, it's just right there. I mean, it's all your hard work and culminating into this one moment and dreams coming true. And, to get that call from such a special person and then also special organization like the Denver Broncos just doesn't get any better.
So what was it like learning from like a Peyton Manning and watching him prepare, and how did you prepare alongside of him?
I mean, it was probably the greatest thing that could have happened to me. It taught me how to be a pro and how to be a pro very quickly. There's a reason why he had the success that he had, and it starts with his work ethic and how he goes about his business and his routine. And so, it's funny. So many players have so much success in college, but then they don't know how to transition to the NFL, and it's because it's a totally different game and it requires different things. And so for me, I had this blueprint in front of me. Now, he wasn't going to give me the answers to the test.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to hand me anything on a silver platter. He wasn't going to say, "Hey, here's the answer to this." But I took it upon myself to watch him and watch everything he did. What time did he get to the facility? What time does he leave the facility? What is he doing during his time inside that facility? How is he interacting with coaches? How is he interacting with players? How does he conduct a meeting? When we'd get out to practice, how does he handle the walkthrough? Okay, why is he spending so much time on this? I watched it all and I took mental note after mental note, because the NFL stands for not for long, right? And so you never know when your opportunity is going to come to play, and you
Mhm.
you have little to no opportunities to make the most of that. And you either make the most of it and you stick around for a little bit, or it passes by you. And so whenever my opportunity did come, I wanted to make sure that I was, armed with the knowledge I needed and ready to go, and obviously didn't want to waste having a guy like Peyton Manning around.
Well, I love to hear how that shaped the way you prepare and lead. So winning a Super Bowl championship is something few athletes, Brock, really ever get to experience. Like, what does that mean to you today?
Wow. It's crazy to think that it was 10 years ago. We just had our 10-year reunion
Oh,
this year in Denver. It's special because it's something you can look back on, and regardless of how far removed you get from it, I just mentioned 10 years, you just know that one, all the things that you did, starting from Pop Warner to middle school to junior high to high school to college, all kind of led into this moment. And then you were super fortunate to be around a very special group of people,
mhm,
players, coaches, support staff, and you were able to accomplish this thing that is like so hard to do and so hard to get, and you were able to do it together. And I think the most special thing is you talk about bonds created in
mhm.
college. You go win a Super Bowl championship with a special group of people that you truly care about and respect. I mean, that's a bond for eternity. And the fact that I'm fortunate enough to say I have that, I was able to experience that. I would do anything for any one of those players and coaches, and I know they feel the same way. So there's a million things that go with it. They're just once again hard to put into words, but just yeah, just really, really grateful for my time with that group of people.
Football gave you some incredible experiences, but today your life is centered around something much bigger than the game. One thing we have in common is we're both color analysts. And people see maybe the 3 hours, Brock, that you're on TV, but what they don't see is all the preparation that
Yeah.
goes into it behind the scenes. But what pushed you to get involved with calling games? Was this a way to stay connected to the game, or was this something that you had always been interested in being involved with the media?
Yeah, never had interest. Never once did I think I would ever call a game or be a part of the media in any facet. Truth be told, I played 7 years in the NFL. And I wasn't quite ready to be done with the game.
Mhm.
But that's how it goes. Very few athletes get to truly decide when they want to hang it up. And so, I'm sitting there, I'm 29, 30 years old, and I have more to give to the game of football. So I kind of had to sit there and contemplate, what's the best avenue to get back involved with the game? Is it coaching? Is it scouting? Is it running camps? Is it being an individual? There were so many
Mhm.
different areas to look at. And there was one thing that was really important to me at the time when I was trying to make this decision. I wanted to be around for my kids. I had two young daughters at the time, and being there, being available to them, and
Mhm.
just making memories and driving them to school and being at their events and things like that really mattered to me. And so, what allowed me to do that, but also stay involved at a high level with the game of ball. And I remember my agent was like, "Well, why don't you do broadcasting?" And I was like, how do you even like how does this even happen? Like what is it? How does it work? And so just to make a long story short, he got me an audition at Fox. Then I got an audition at ESPN. I went and did the two auditions. Both of them offered me jobs. We chose ESPN and away we go. And now we're going into year 5. And it's been perfect. It really has. I love the gig because I'm able to work from home, during the week. I'm able to still be around for my kids. I coach the volleyball teams. If they have a school event, I can be there. But then I have to get on the airplane and I leave on the weekends. And of
Mhm.
course you miss some things there, but find a person in this country that doesn't have to miss something once in a while. It's you hop on the plane, you do the job, you get back by Sunday, and then you do it again. And I think the beautiful thing about it is it's really just end of August to basically end of January. And then I have an off season just like I was playing, and where I'm scot-free 7 days a week and able to be there for all the kid stuff. So I am so grateful that I found broadcasting, that ESPN offered me the job, and I ran with it. And I've worked with incredible people and made incredible relationships. And so much of it is like being a football player. When we're on the road, gosh, I don't know the number, 30, 40, 50 people from ESPN are there every single weekend. And you travel with
Mhm.
this same group of people 20 weeks a year, or whatever it ends up being, 16, 18 weeks. And so it's kind of cool. You kind of have your football family still, and you're involved with the game and you're around the coaches and players. But then I still get to be a dad and a husband and be there for all that stuff as well.
So, is there anything that's really surprised you? I feel like when I've listened and watched you call games, I mean, you explain the game, but I also feel like you walk this fine line where you don't become the story. And so and you make it about the kids that are on the field or the players that
Yeah.
are on the field. And so is there something that's you've really changed in how you look at the game, or has this just been like through your lens?
You know, I, the way I call a game is I respect the game. I respect the
Mm.
game. I respect the players. I respect the coaches. There's nothing that drives me more crazy than when I hear an analyst in the booth talk like the game's easy or coaching the game's easy.
That isn't that the truth? I'm telling you, that is absolutely it. As a former player,
Yeah,
trust me, that kid did not try to miss a shot
correct.
or
Correct.
they did not try to drop that ball.
Now, there's the fine line where you have to be truthful, right? Because you can't
Yes.
lie, you can't
Right.
lie to somebody's eyes, right?
Right.
So you have to be truthful, but there's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it while respecting the game. There's something that I remind myself of before the start of each game, and it's act as though your feet are down in the grass, like you have
Yes.
cleats in the grass. And don't forget what that's like. Don't forget what it's like to, I don't know, take 12 hits in a game and all of a sudden you're in the fourth quarter and maybe the quarterback got rid of the football a little bit early. Well, it's probably because
Yeah.
he's tired of getting hit, right? Or maybe he hangs in the pocket for an extra second and delivers a beautiful pass and takes his 13th hit. Well, I'm going to give that guy a lot of love because I remember what it was like to get hit 12 times
Mhm.
before that 13th hit and what it's going to feel like the next day. So I think that's it. If you boil it down, I just respect what the players are doing. I respect the what the coaches are doing, all the time and hours they put into it and the time away from their families. And I think if you just kind of keep that simple of a mentality, because I just think too many analysts sit up in an air conditioned booth and they talk about it like it's easy and this, that, and the other. And so, yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I try to explain the game to the viewer that's maybe trying to learn it, or maybe somebody who knows a lot of football. Maybe there's one more layer I can peel back from the onion, teach them something new. And then I want to honor the people that are down there on the field doing the hard stuff. I mean, that's it. I think back to some commentators when I was playing that said things that weren't true, that weren't right, and that's something I will always stay away from. I will only say something that is absolutely true that the player told me directly or a coach told me directly. I'm not going to fabricate anything, and most of all, I'm going to respect the people that are down there on the grass.
I also feel like when you are explaining something real time, someone's mishap could also be a great play on the other side. So, and so I look at it that way, like, what
And
am I
that's
going to
the
focus on?
that's
How am I going to take this play and turn it into something that isn't highlighting that turnover, but maybe that was just a
right.
great defensive stop.
And that's the balance, right? Like, do I want to talk about why the quarterback threw the interception,
Hmm.
or should I talk about the defensive back that made a great play on the ball?
Hmm.
And without a doubt, and putting a positive spin on a play, especially in college football, I think is really important. So I love that you said that. And there's a balance. I try to hit both sides, right? You try to hit the what and the why of the offense, the what and the why of the defense. But yeah, I think if you can always finish, your thought on a positive note, then I think you're doing a good job.
So, family life now, Brock, can you talk about what your daughters have taught you that maybe football could never teach you?
Oh my. Oh my. What lessons have they taught me?
Ooh, they teach you a lot, don't they? Humility,
Patience. I mean,
patience. Yes.
patience. I mean, patience jumps out right away. And I've been so fortunate. I'm trying to think. I stopped playing when my oldest daughter was probably maybe 3. So I've really been there for her. And then our youngest daughter, she was probably 1. So
Mhm.
I've been there for her. Maybe she was just born if I think back on it. Anyways, point is I've really been there and in the fire with them 7 days
Mhm.
a week, right there with my wife. So yeah, you learn patience quickly. And then I say all that just because, I know there's so many parents that haven't had that opportunity to be there for all of that with their kids. And so, we love it. I'm so grateful that I've received and spent all that time with them, and we're a super close family. We have a ton of fun, and those girls are awesome.
So, Brock, I know that Kalispell means a lot to you, and you invested right back in the community with the Brock Osweiler Performance Center. Can you talk about how that all came about? And I have a feeling it has to do with your parents' influence and everything that you learned and that give back to that community. But talk about how that all came about.
Yeah, boy, when was that? That's boy, time's moving. God, maybe right during COVID,
Mhm.
somewhere right in there, maybe. It was summertime, and I got a phone call from a teacher that was working at Flathead that I actually played high school football with, and he just mentioned, he was like, "Hey, that weight room is still the same weight room we had." And when we had it, it was the same weight room that the players from the 90s and the 80s had. There was nothing new. Everything was falling apart, and it was time to do something about it. And so I really credit him for reaching out and just saying, listen, if there's something that you're willing to do, we'd be extremely grateful and appreciative for it. And so that's kind of where it started. And it started with, all right, let's just do this. All right, man, we'll do this. And then it led to, you know what, let's just do the whole dang thing.
Mm.
And I had a lot of help from, people inside the building there, just kind of their opinions on what they wanted to do. And then I reached out to the strength staff that was with us when we won Super Bowl 50 in Denver, asked their opinion on some things. So it was this collaborative effort. And, I wanted to do it because I look back on my time in high school, even like late junior high, and the weight room was the foundation, I believe, for my success.
Mhm.
Obviously, parents and upbringing and values and community, but the weight room is where I really learned to work. And I have this belief that if you have a dream and you're willing to work hard enough for it, you can accomplish it. And so I looked at the weight room as there's some other kid, boy, girl in the Flathead Valley, and they have a dream and they want to go play college athletics, or they want to be an Olympian, or whatever it may be with sports. And if they're willing to work hard enough, if they have the platform to do it, they can accomplish that goal. And so that's why I built that weight room. I wanted a weight room where if you had a dream to play sports at the next level and you're willing to work hard enough for it, okay, the tools are here to go do it. Now just go put in the work. And so that was really the mentality behind it. I was fortunate after my let's think freshman year basketball season. There was an assistant coach by the name of Phil Jackson that really kind of took me under his wing, and he was like, hey man, if you want to get in the weight room and get after it, I know a thing or two. Like, let's get you stronger, let's get you bigger, let's get you, faster, and let's do all the things, and let's take this thing to the next level. And so, as you've kind of learned throughout this podcast, yep, I'm going to jump at an opportunity like that. And so we got started the next day, and he pushed me. And so then that was it. And he's still involved in the school. And so it was like, all right, you've been doing this with kids for decades now. Let's go give you the platform to really crank it up to the next level. And that's how that weight room came about.
Well, Brock, I also think that you've inspired the city of Kalispell, but also having a son that played in high school. So many kids see that and they see it means so much more than just Kalispell. To inspire all of these kids that come through Kalispell and go to Flathead High and say, look at this. This is
Yeah.
someone who has had a lot of success but chose to give back. And that's a lesson that really carries on for this next generation. So, Brock, we call this series, or I call this series Montana Made, because I believe that where we're raised, it helps shape who we become no matter where life takes us. So, when you hear those two words like Montana Made, what does that mean to you?
It means to me that if you are lucky enough to call the great state of Montana home, you're just a bit different than everybody else. You're a little bit tougher. You're willing to work a little bit harder. You have a different mentality. You have, there's a no quit. It's just, okay, here's the job. All right, let's go, and I remember Dennis Erickson, my college football coach, saying something about that. He loved whenever he could get his hands on a Montana football player, whether he was at University of Miami or Washington State, Oregon State, all of his different stops. He wanted them because of their work ethic and how tough they were. And so when I hear Montana Made, those are some of the things that come to mind.
Brock, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with me from Kalispell to Arizona State to the NFL, ESPN, family life. It's been a privilege to hear your journey. So thanks for being part of the Montana Made series.
You are so welcome. I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
A special thank you to Brock Osweiler for sharing his story. And we appreciate all of you for joining us for the second episode of Montana Made, proudly presented by Clearwater Credit Union. Their mission is to be a force for good in banking, in the communities they serve and in the lives of their members. To learn more about their services and their commitment to Montana, visit clearwatercreditunion.org. Before we wrap up, I'd like to thank two incredible Montana businesses that support Krista Redpath Media and the Montana Made series, Basil and Main Street Pilates. Basil has been one of my favorite lunch spots for years. Seriously, go have lunch at Basil. You can thank me later. And if you've been thinking about trying Pilates, now is a great time. Main Street Pilates has openings for new clients, and I can't recommend them enough. Their commitment to classical Pilates and personalized instruction has made such a difference for me. I'm grateful to partner with businesses that invest in our Montana communities and believe in this series. Join us in 2 weeks for our next episode of Montana Made as we sit down with Missoula's own Dave Kempfert, former Hellgate Knight, Montana Grizz, and NFL offensive lineman whose journey began right here in Big Sky Country. Until next time, I'm Krista Redpath. Thanks for listening to Montana Made, a featured series of the Krista Redpath podcast.